Sunscreen Film Festival podcast number 3. You might notice the microphone in the shot today. We had one person complain that our audio was not great, so we're doing what we can to try and improve that. And we will actually have lav mics for the next podcast. So doing what we can on no budget, with no sound engineer, no anything really, but keeping this going. So.
We are filming this in Tony's kitchen, so
yes. It is a non-profit organization, and we do what we can just for the community to help help things out. But anyways, this is the Sunscreen Film Festival podcast. I'm Tony Armour, co-founder, executive director of the film festival, and
I'm Tyler Martinolich, the programming director for the film festival. When started 4 years ago.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. Yeah, a while now. So we're going into film festival number 8. Will be coming up April 18th to the 21st of 2013, so we have a little bit of time to go on that. But even though the film festival is not until April, we are actually going to be opening our call for entries very soon here, right around the beginning of September.
That's the goal. So I'll be setting up a Without a Box account sometime beginning of next week. We're hoping to have submissions open up on September 1st. We'll have the same categories as we did last year, but we're adding a new one this year, which is a focus on Spanish films.
Yes, yeah, we're going to add a Spanish section, a Spanish language focus to the film festival this year. Being here in Florida, it only makes sense that we should add a Spanish language focus. I actually don't think that there are any film festivals in the entire Tampa Bay area that have any sort of Spanish language focus like that. And there are probably half dozen festivals or something like that in this area. And I think the Spanish language population is around, I looked up the demographics, 22% of the population.
Yeah.
So,
and we always get really good Latin American and Spanish films submitted every year, typically shorts, not too many features. Mm-hmm. But we've always had really good luck with foreign films from Latin America. But we've never really focused on them. They've always been a part of a foreign short block. Though 2 years ago we did have the Cine del Sol Award, where we did give an award for Best Spanish Language Film. But it's going to be great to invite the local Hispanic community to the festival and really cater to their interests.
Yeah, so we're going to really get the local Hispanic community, Spanish language speaking community involved in the festival for this coming year. We're going to have a specific one theater or 2 theaters that are set aside for the entire festival. They're just going to be all Spanish language throughout the entire festival. So, like Tyler said, we do get a lot of international films. We get a lot of foreign language films, whether they're German or Russian or wherever. And so we're going to keep programming all those foreign language films that we always do, along with all of the shorts and documentaries and, of course, English stuff that we always do, and then add this specific Spanish language focus. So it should be good. If you have a film that's in Spanish, if you have friends or know anyone that's a film that's in Spanish, please let us know. Please submit it to the festival. And one of the things that we'd like to be doing this year as well is actually bringing in a director or a filmmaker as well for one of the films that we bring in, so that they can really take part in the festival and promote their film and do what they can.
And to promote this, we're going to be doing individual screenings of licensed films throughout the year leading up to the festival. So if you're local and you can't attend, leave a comment or email one of us with suggestions if you have something that you would like to see. I know right now there's a lot of interest in Chilean filmmakers, so I'm going to try to grab a couple of really good films from Chile this year. But really, anything you guys are interested in seeing, whether it's Latin American or not, send us comments. As a programming director, I'm always looking to be turned on to new films that perhaps I haven't seen or haven't heard about, especially independent features that you might know about because you're connected to the local film community, but it hasn't gotten out there to a broader audience. So I'm always happy to take suggestions.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be partnering actually with the Feathered Serpent Gallery. It's a gallery with a Spanish focus that's in downtown St. Petersburg. They're going to be a partner with us this year and a sponsor of the Spanish language section of the film festival. So we're really looking forward to that. So other festival news, we do have, in addition to starting our call for entries on September 1st, we're going to have a 3-day filmmaking workshop with Chris Wyatt. For those of you who may not know who Chris Wyatt is, Chris is one of the producers of Napoleon Dynamite. He is a writer on the Avengers animated series on Disney XD and the Ultimate Spider-Man animated series on Disney XD, as well as producing something like a dozen other feature films. So a very, very established Hollywood filmmaker that's going to be doing this workshop for us, a 3-day workshop, where if you're watching this podcast, we are charging $300 for the 3-day workshop, but there's a discount code, SSFF20 2012. Use that discount code and you can get the 3-day workshop for just $100. Go to our website, sunscreenfilmfestival.com. You'll see the Chris Wyatt thing there. Click on that. It'll send you to the ticketing page and use that discount code SSFF2012 to get the discount for only $100 for 3 days. $33.33 a day for what's going to be an awesome workshop.
Which isn't bad at all by any means. And there's a lot of people who do these 3-day film festival or film workshop lecture series. And just knowing Chris, how I do, he's amazingly personable, so immersed in Nerdist culture. He's no different than me or Tony or anyone else. He's just really down to earth and loves what he does.
Oh, yeah.
And absolutely adores people who are as into film and comic books and sci-fi, fantasy as he is, and he can get into amazing discussions. And he knows stuff, minute details about comic books. As big a fan of comic books as I am, he blows me away.
Oh yeah, he's amazing. Really intelligent, and he is also an adjunct professor at USC's film school as well. So it's not just somebody who's going to get up there and talk. This is somebody who knows how to teach film, has great film experience. It's going to be a workshop that you definitely do not want to miss.
And he's a hands-on kind of guy too.
Yeah.
He's going to answer as many questions as he can. I know he will. And he's so approachable, which I think the go-to 3-day film festival is the Dobson thing.
Yeah.
I've been in film for 10 years, and I would still be scared to death to walk up to this strange man in a kimono yelling at me. I don't know if you've ever seen the Dobson workshops. They're ridiculous. That is not the atmosphere we want to foster here. So I'm really excited to have him coming.
Yeah, we have kind of that very comfortable kind of a film festival anyways with people. That's one of the things people always say to us is, they really feel at home and they really feel they're part of the community, and it's just so open and friendly and it doesn't feel super stuffy. So, and Doc's the same kind of way. He fits in with that, and it's, it would be an excellent workshop. Something else, that we're looking at doing as well. I'm talking to a couple of literary managers out in Los Angeles who represent a lot of writers for film and television, and we're going to have them come out and do a workshop as well, probably sometime in November. Still working on the details, so I'll give you all the details once we get that sorted out. But going to continue to do more things, actors workshops and the screenwriting workshops, and this workshop with Chris Wyatt. And again, if you have any suggestions, something that you would like to see us do as far as a class or a workshop or something like that, just shoot us an email to info@sunscreenfilmfestival.com. So, we'll do what we can and keep trying to put that educational stuff out there.
Yeah.
So, one of the other things that we like to do with the podcast here, besides tell you about all of the stuff that we're doing with the film festival, is to throw our own little nerd news and nerd comments out there and just discuss film news and film and television in general, kind of a pop culture podcast, and give you our opinions on things that you may or may
whatever
not.
That's worth.
Whatever our opinions are worth, nothing. It's worth my dog sleeping on the floor and ignoring us. That's you can do the same thing. But we do have some interesting thoughts, I think, on some stuff. For example, Tyler and I were just talking about Total Recall, the new film, which came out last night, and that we've both seen. So I guess we can give you our unedited opinions on that. I'll let Tyler get started.
I really liked it. One, if you've seen the original Total Recall, I mean, this is really a spoiler, but it's nothing like the Arnold Schwarzenegger version.
Right.
This is based off of the Philip K. Dick short story, which takes place on Earth in sort of a post-apocalyptic future, where the Earth's population has sort of been reduced to two colonies or cities or megacities or country, whatever you want to call it. And one is the economic upper class, and the other is, I don't want to call them slaves, but they're sort of the lower middle class workforce. Yeah, they're workforce. So they pretty much live in the slums, commute every day through the core of the earth to work the shops, work the foundries, do all the menial labor so that the wealthy can stay wealthy and relatively work free and relax. I really liked it. I mean, if I had to give a rating out of it, I'd say 8 out of 10. I thought the special effects were phenomenal. The art direction was really, really interesting. The lower class slums they call the colony, and it takes place in Australia, what's left of Australia.
Yeah.
But it has a very Pan-Asian thing, which I guess is appropriate for where it's located.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of Blade Runner in its feeling as far as, you know, sort of the aesthetic of the whole thing. But then it has, you know, a lot of, you know, Asian kind of culture mixed in with it. You know, a lot of the street signs and stuff are in English, and they're in, I don't read whatever languages, but I'm assuming it's maybe Chinese, as well as you know, food vendors and just sort of that whole aesthetic, basically. Which, you know, that seems to be kind of popular where things are going with stuff. You know, Firefly, you know, really.
It actually reminded me a lot of Firefly.
Kind of got that started. Yeah. And, you know, they weren't speaking in kind of, you know, pseudo-Chinese phrases and things like that, like Firefly does. But sort of that, you know, little sensibility with that, you know, Asian Chinese thing mixed in. And yeah, and like with the Blade Runner aesthetic to the whole thing, looked really cool. Looked really good. I liked the style that they shot it in and everything.
So just absolutely gorgeous and amazing action scenes.
Yeah.
There's I guess I'll call them hover cars.
Mm-hmm.
They're magnetic and they can flip up and down. It was one of the most elaborate and cool car chase scenes I've seen in a futuristic setting. It's one of the cars on top, and then it's underneath, and it was really, really well choreographed.
Yeah, they did a great job with that, and I'd actually heard or read somewhere that for what they did for some of those scenes is they actually had the actual physical cars built, and they would be bumping them into each other and shooting them, obviously, in front of a green screen, but it wasn't 100% just CGI cars.
Actually, it was Jessica Biel, I think, on Daily Show, I want to say, on Monday or Tuesday night. She was talking about how they actually appropriated a jet runway
cool.
in England, and they had these souped-up sports cars that were layered in green screen covering, and they actually had the built hover car on top of it.
Wow.
But that was actually them racing. Now, the environment's all CGI, and a lot of the chase cars, but the actual two picture vehicles were actually jockeying around the track and hitting each other, and they were on gimbals, so when you actually see them colliding, it was some guy in a remote control swinging out the arm and crashing it into each other. So they, she was talking about how they tried to do as many practical effects as possible.
And I love that. I'm a big fan of practical effects in films.
And you can tell when someone falls and they land and they roll correctly, it's not some CGI body.
Yeah.
It really stood out for me. It was one of the best sci-fi action films I've seen in a long, long time.
Yeah, no, they did a really good job with it. And you know, when you see so many movies like we do, which I'm sure if you're watching this podcast, you're probably a big movie fan as well. When you see so many movies and so many Hollywood movies and high-budget movies and action movies and things like that, sometimes they just kind of all run together, and action is very similar, and it's, you know, jumpy camera and you know, some karate chops, and you know. But this was, I liked the action. I thought they did a really good job with it. It was fun, it was unique, and what made a lot of it unique were the set pieces, I think.
Yeah.
The way that the characters moved through the set pieces in the action sequences were a lot of fun.
And I guess it's sort of normal at this point in time, where a lot of the action scenes have more of a parkour element to it.
Yeah.
This definitely did, and just the way they structured the sets, where they were just the verticality of it.
Right.
They were moving all over the place. It was really, really interesting chase scenes.
Yeah. The movement of the chase scenes were a lot of fun. Almost, you know, one of my favorite, like, sort of running chase scenes is in the first new James Bond with Daniel Craig, Casino Royale.
Yeah, the opening
of that, a lot of fun. You know, you've got, you know, Bond running, you know, just full out like Bond, and then, you know, with the parkour guy that he's chasing, sort of thing. A good contrast in that film. And so this film it's not like that, but you know, you have that extended like foot chase sort of scene that's a lot of fun. You know, that was really good. So I enjoyed the movie quite a bit as well. You know, it's not Arnold. I mean, you know, it doesn't. They threw in a couple of you know, pseudo one-liners, but they just don't elicit the same kind of humor as Considerate of the Walls.
They do. They try to pay homage a couple times. I think if you guys saw any Comic-Con coverage, you know that the famous hooker, bartender, waitress from the first one who had the three breasts shows up in a random cameo. It's not the same actress, but it's the same prosthetic.
You did have a 3-boobed hooker.
You did for like 10 seconds of screen time, but I found it funny. They did a good job of paying fan service, I think, where they could.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell, you know, some of the main points of the film were paralleled to the original movie, which were fun. You know, and it was fun to sit there and watch and see how they were going to do it different.
Yeah.
You know, there's the scene in the original Total Recall where Arnold is there with his wife, and the guy comes in from recall and says, you know, I'm not giving anything away because the movie was made in 1990, so if you haven't seen it by now, this is not a spoiler by any means. I don't know what to tell you. But, you know, he's trying to figure out if he's really still in recall or if it's a real-life situation. He sees the drop of sweat come down the guy's face, and he knows, or at least in the time he thinks that, okay, this is real, and he shoots the guy and kills him. So they set up that scene the same way, and then, you know, you're watching, it's like, okay, how are they going to do this different? Which they do it different. We won't give away, you know, what the spoiler is.
My only issue with it and why I didn't like it, as well as some other sci-fi films I've seen, I still loved it quite a bit, but I thought the pacing was a little off. Particularly, there's a point in the movie, without giving any spoilers away, where all of the main characters sort of come together for the first time in the same location, and it just felt very anticlimactic.
Yeah.
And they rushed through a lot of plot points. It was like, we need to get to the next set piece as quick as possible.
Right.
So I think the story overall suffered for it. But honestly, you're moving so quickly through the film, you don't really have time to pay attention to actually whether the story makes any sense at all.
Yeah, and it's, you know, if you can believe that this is 200 years in the future or whatever it is, you can believe that there's a big tunnel that, you know, kind of goes around the core to get people from England to Australia. So you can buy that, you know, suspend your disbelief, and you can buy the, you know, the magnetic cars, which were really cool, a lot of the other stuff that's going on. So, you know, yeah.
Which is an epic set piece, by the way. This tram car, for lack of a better term, that goes past the core of the Earth. Towards the end of the movie, is just a really awesome set piece.
Yeah, and the way that they do it, you know, they show you a quick glimpse of a sort of a map to be in, and show you how it kind of goes around the core as it's going through the center of the Earth, you know, to get from England to Australia. And it's a very cool setup. Whether it's feasible or not, who knows? Whatever. 200 years in the future, it isn't. You know, so it's fine. Sure, why not? But there are some other cool little technological things that they have for the characters that I think are a lot of fun. The hand phone is really cool. I really liked that. I thought that was really cool. So yeah,
it seemed sort of practical, I guess.
Yeah.
Do that.
It did seem fairly feasible the way that it's set up, and the way the technology is progressing nowadays, and the things that they're doing with technology. It seems that 200 years, there's no reason they shouldn't be able to do that or be beyond that at that
point. Which I think is why it reminded me of Blade Runner so much, because the technology, even though it was definitely futuristic, was still very much grounded in technology we have today. It's just sort of extrapolating where it's going to be.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's like whatever we have today, what is that going to be like? And, you know, if you think back where we were at 100 years ago, when, you know, still didn't have, I guess 100 years ago was 1912, but still a lot of horse and carriage going on, you know? Look at the cars that we have now, where they're actually testing cars without drivers on the roads as far as, you know, GPS navigation, getting these cars where they're going. Technology is at that point in 100 years from where we were, you know, horse and buggies and, you know, the way things are without, it's going to be rambling, but, you know, you can foresee that 200 years in the future, you know, how technology will be. Anyways, the bottom line is I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was good. Thought it was a lot of fun. Just a fun, you know, summer action film. One of the better ones I've seen this summer. And Colin Farrell, whether you like him or hate him, I thought he was good.
I thought he was the centerpiece of the movie. I think he
did a good job.
Grounded sort of a humanity that wouldn't have otherwise been there. I thought he did a really, really excellent job.
Yeah. You know, again, you know, you go back to the original. You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger is kind of this larger than life character.
Well, it's very tongue-in-cheek. I think that's why people, even though the graphics and special effects don't hold up at all if you watch the original Total Recall, it's still a fun, kind of quirky romp.
Yeah, which I plan on watching the original Total Recall again in the next day or so, just because I you know, I mean, how can you not, like, you know, Quaid coming out of the guys? I can't even hear Dennis Quaid's name without thinking of Total Recall and the mutant guy coming out of the other guy's chest.
Or when they fall out to the Martian surface and their
eyes are bulging out, and the whole, you know, consider that the boss, you know, just his one-liners are just, you know, pure Arnold. It's awesome. Which, you know, I guess that's kind of a good segue into talking about the Expendables 2 coming up in 2 weeks, I think.
Yes.
Is when that comes out.
I think it's really the last sort of big budget action film of the summer.
Yeah, I think
so. I can't think of anything else coming out after that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But that one should be just ridiculous fun at the same time. That brings together the what do you got? You got Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Dolph Lundgren, Chuck Norris, Van Damme. I think Van Damme plays the bad guy from with trailer.
Is one of the bad guys. Yeah. But you've got Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis, Jason Statham,
Terry Crews.
Who's
the old MMA guy?
Chuck Liddell.
Not Chuck Liddell.
Some MMA guy.
I can't forget his name, but it's like the all-star. It's not a movie you go to see thinking is going to be an amazing plot.
Right.
I just want to see old action heroes kicking ass.
Right.
I think that's why I like Taken so much.
Yeah.
I see Liam Neeson beat the shit out of younger people.
Right.
Which, speaking of, did you see the trailer for Taken 2?
Yeah. It's the exact same movie as the first one.
It is, I don't care.
But I'll see it anyways. And you know what? Hollywood doesn't care either. You're like, people like the first one because of what it was.
Yeah.
Because of, he's on the phone, his daughter's under the bed, listen very carefully.
They do the exact same
thing. And they're going to do the exact same setup, the exact same thing. Whatever. Same thing with The Hangover.
Only Mika Jensen gets stolen this time. His wife.
Right.
I think the daughter's looks like she's going to play more of an active role in this. I don't know.
Whatever.
As long as Liam Neeson shoots some people and says some good one-liners.
It'll be fun, happy. And that's so. I guess, we are a film festival podcast. We could talk about, some independent, indie sort of films here. But at the same time, we're just, movie lovers in general as well. So today we're going to talk about cheesy action films and whatever.
I think I was wrong. There is one more action movie coming out, and that is Judge Dredd, which looks horrifically bad.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll like it, but watching the trailer, we went to see The Raid together,
yes.
And all I could think of is like, I've already seen this movie and it was done a hell of a lot better.
Yeah.
Why do I want to see it?
Yeah. So it's also talking about maybe some independent and some foreign films. There's a film that if you haven't seen it, it's called The Raid, and I believe it was shot in Thailand or Taiwan.
Somewhere, but I'm pretty sure the point is they killed every stuntman in Asia making this movie.
Yes.
They had to. It was some of the most spectacular, visceral, brutal action scenes I'd ever come across in a film.
Yeah, it was, and the basic premise is that there's a drug lord in this, slum community where the cops never usually go, and he's like on the 20th floor of this building, and the cops got to start on the ground floor and work their way all the way up to him, basically without using the elevator, floor by floor by floor by floor. And it's almost like a video game, and you're progressing level through level.
It really is, and there's no setup or preamble whatsoever. There's a couple of moments where you see them getting ready in the morning, and all of a sudden they're in the back of the SWAT truck, the doors open, and the movie starts.
The movie starts, the action starts, and it progresses through the whole thing. And they have some little story twists along the way. But it is what it is. It's, an Asian action flick, and it was really well done. And now, we're espousing our love here for just generic action and not really caring much about story, but Judge Dredd, I don't think, from what I've seen in the trailer, that their story will even hold up to make me even think that that's even remotely.
It looks like they came with the gimmick to use bullet time more than they should, probably, with the whole, I guess it's a drug that slows down time. But it looked exactly like The Raid. The trailer looks like, this woman is at the top of the floor as a drug dealer, and we've got to go from floor 1 to floor 100 and whatever it is. Which I don't mind. If it's all right, it's all right. But as a semi-fan of the first Judge Dredd, which is probably blasphemy, it's a terrible film, but it's one of those bad films that's almost good, where you have Sylvester Stallone like, I am the law. It was so corny. It's sort of like Total Recall, actually. I was like, why are you doing this now? No one was asking for this.
No one was asking for it. They're like, it's a comic book movie. We need to make more comic book movies because people like comic books. But nobody knows about Judge. It's not like it's Superman or Spider-Man or whatever. It's Judge Dredd, which most people out there, when they hear Judge Dredd, don't think of, Judge Dredd was a comic book for a long time. They think of, wasn't that a Stallone movie, back in the day. And this one looks, again, based solely on trailers, not having seen it, it looks horrible.
But I kind of get the feeling that they're playing off of the whole Avengers thing, and why not? They made a lot of money.
Right.
But they're sort of dipping really low as far as the barrel goes when it comes to other comic characters. Like they're doing Ant-Man, which Ant-Man typically was. He was one of the Avengers. But do I really want to see a standalone movie about Ant-Man? Who in the comic books was a pacifist. How do you make a pacifist who can shrink down to the size of an ant interesting?
Yeah, I suppose, you could have some really cool set pieces, a la Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, with flying bugs and him being in that kind of world, maybe fighting spiders and animals and other things. But I don't know. But the director that's doing that is what's his name? Winter, right?
Yes.
I keep wanting to say Edgar Winter, but not Edgar. Edgar Wright. Edgar Wright. Edgar Winter is the white-haired crazy musician guy from back in the day.
But apparently he's wanted to do this for like 10 years.
Yeah, and Edgar Wright, for those who don't know, Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead. So the same guy who made Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz is doing the animated film, which...
Huge comic book fan, so...
Right, so knowing that guy, you kind of trust his track record that he's going to do a good job with this film. So that should be an interesting one. And it's interesting to actually see where Marvel is going to go with their next incarnation of stuff. They're still doing, of course, another Iron Man, another Thor, another Captain America, setting it all up for another Avengers movie, and they're doing.
But I was wondering where they're going to do Black Panther movie as well, which makes sense because there's no black superhero out there that I can think of right now. Unless you go way back to like Steel.
Well, Blade technically.
Oh, Blade, okay.
But that's sort of outside the realm of the Marvel universe. It's not.
Isn't he in jail for tax evasion?
I think Wesley Snipes did go to jail for tax evasion. I'm assuming he's out by now. That was a couple of years ago, I think. So. And I do have a little Wesley Snipes story sort of related to tax evasion. So a few years ago, I have friends that live in Geneva, Switzerland, which is, of course, a very large banking area. People know, Swiss banks, where a lot of people hide their money, where obviously the Nazis tried to hide a lot of stuff after World War II and so on and so forth. Not associating Wesley Snipes with Nazis by any means, just setting up the history of Switzerland and the banking system is what I'm doing. But I have a friend who, I will not name him, was hired to be Wesley Snipes' driver in Switzerland while Wesley Snipes was there a few years back. And this is prior to his tax evasion trial. And basically all he did was drive him from bank to bank to bank as he was hiding money from the IRS while he was in Switzerland. So, and I personally know this guy, and he confirmed, certain details that so that I do believe him, because he told me about this all before the tax evasion trial started. And in the U.S., people know who Wesley Snipes is. But in Switzerland, a lot of people sort of knew him, but didn't necessarily know him. So when he tried to go out to the nightclubs and the hookers and things like that, I guess there were some interesting things that happened.
Now that Tony is saying that Wesley Snipes does hookers.
No, I'm not saying that Wesley Snipes participates in any sort of illicit behavior like that. But and not saying that he really was hiding money in Swiss bank accounts. But my friend did drive him from bank to bank to bank to bank all over Switzerland for a matter of, a week or something like that. So, be that as it may, take whatever you want from that.
Exclusive Sunscreen podcast.
That is an exclusive. It's old news because the trial's already been done and over with, and I'm assuming served his time. But just a little.
I would probably have a chuckle if you got a call from the attorney's office.
Nobody of any importance is watching this podcast, anyways. And if they do, I will be more amazed that someone with any kind of knowledge of Wesley Snipes' agent or attorney calls me with a cease and desist to remove this portion of the podcast.
I tell you one thing: he will not be visiting Sunscreen.
He probably won't be coming to our film festival now at any point in time. Sorry, but you know what, Wesley, if you do happen to see this, I would love to have you come. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
You can set us straight and maybe share your stories.
Absolutely. They did. Where that trial took place? It took place in Ocala, actually, just up the road, about 100 miles or so. For some reason, the whole tax evasion trial took place in Ocala.
Wouldn't surprise me if you had residency here for tax purposes.
Tax purposes, no state tax in the state of Florida. So. Anyways, now that we're done boring everyone with Wesley Snipes' tax talk, we're done slandering. Is it slander or libel? I always get those confused.
Slander, if you say it. Libel, if you read it.
We're not really slandering. It's all hearsay, actually.
Right.
I'm saying this is what a friend told me. Anyways, regardless, moving on from Wesley Snipes and his. We were talking about action films.
Yes.
We were talking about Blade and black superheroes, and Guardians of the Galaxy is the next big thing that Marvel is going to do as far as...
Completely random.
Yeah, very random. They have so many heroes, and to kind of choose that is really interesting. It has a very space-oriented theme, so you can kind of get the characters out into outer space, introduce some new characters that even as a big Marvel Comics fan, I'm not familiar with a lot of them. But I know who they are, but not super familiar with who the characters are in detail. But
it just seems an odd choice. If you think of the Avengers, and I know there's a huge cachet out there, a lot of people know who Iron Man is, know who Captain America is. But for those people who haven't heard about who these people are, you had one-offs with those characters prior to this. So you could learn the origin story of Tony Stark and Iron Man. You could learn the origin story of Captain America before you went to see the Avengers, so you sort of knew who these people are. But now you're throwing out an ensemble cast of people that you don't have time to develop.
Yeah, Nova, Rocket Raccoon,
there's a Plank Dude.
I can't remember exactly who they all are, but and I think what's interesting. One of the reasons that they're doing it is if you think about who are the other big teams in the Marvel Universe that they don't have permission to use. X-Men, the rights for that are owned by Fox, so Fox is going to continue to do the X-Men. They did First Class, they're going to do another X-Men film, and so they'll continue to do that. So Marvel Studios can't use the X-Men. Fantastic Four, also owned by Fox,
but no one really wants to say Fantastic Four.
But they are going to reboot that. They are rebooting and doing it. They didn't do a good job with the first two.
The stories were too simplistic. It didn't really show off their talents or how intelligent they were supposed to be.
Right.
And I think it was one of the most miscast films.
Yeah, it was weirdly cast with Jessica Alba playing Susan Storm. Jessica Alba, she's hot, but she's not like Sue Storm. She's not like a regular blonde woman. To see her blonde, it just was weird kind of thing. Cause she's
Mr. Fantastic was a douche. Which he sort of is in the comic books, but not really. He's just sort of detached from everything.
Right.
This guy was a genuine douche. I forget his name. He's
Ian Gruffle.
Yes. Mr. Fantastic was supposed to be much older than Sue Storm.
Yeah, they tried to make the characters too young. Yeah. It's like Mr. Fantastic, isn't 28 years old. The guy's an adult.
Right. I don't believe that some 20-year-old's a rocket scientist who can formulate a way to get to the moon and back, in a day. That was really strange. But he didn't fit the part.
Yeah.
And there was just no chemistry at all between him and Jessica Alba. It was just so flat.
Yeah. And granted, yes, in the comics, Mr. Fantastic, there is a backstory with him in college and Dr. Doom, and so he's super smart through his whole life, but there's a better way to do it if you want to have younger characters play those parts. They didn't do a very good job. The best one in the whole thing was Chris Evans, who played Human Torch, who is now, of course, Captain America. Yeah. So, but I don't think he'll be back to the Human Torch. But regardless, they're working on another Fantastic Four sort of reboot. But going back to the original point, what else are you going to do? There's the Defenders. So the Defenders is sort of a random, weird team that already involves some people that are in the X-Men. Hawkeye was in the Defenders, I believe, for a short period of time. Well, I think it's Hulk, Doctor Strange, the Beast, Iceman, Valkyrie.
There's a couple of versions of Avengers too.
Yeah, there's
some X-Men crossing over.
It's very random. It's a very random kind of thing. So, Defenders just doesn't make a lot of sense.
The one I always wanted to see was the Thunderbolts, which is the arch-villain version of the Avengers.
Right.
This whole idea, you have all these high-end supervillains in a supermax prison. What do you do with them? Let's implant chips in their head and use their powers for good.
Right. Make them be good guys.
Yeah, and of course it goes wrong.
Yes.
Horribly wrong. In fact, the comics how they are now, you have the Dark Avengers, where they sort of killed off the Avengers, or they've gone their separate ways doing their own thing. So now you've got what were the Thunderbolts now in Avengers costumes. This is really getting nerdy.
Yeah, so we're delving into uber nerd level here. So, but the whole point is there's some more Marvel comics and films and that sort of stuff coming. But one of the things Tyler and I were just chatting about a little earlier, sort of related to television and all this stuff, is one, how much we both liked Network on HBO, the new show on HBO with Jeff Daniels. Love that show. Aaron Sorkin, writer, showrunner, creator, producer, all that good stuff. Aaron Sorkin, who of course wrote West Wing and was it Social Network that he wrote, or was it no, he wrote whatchamacallit, Moneyball. Moneyball, not Social Network. Sorry. Too many things rattle around in the brain there. But anyways, Aaron Sorkin, well known for what he is. But the show, which I love, Tyler loves, widely panned by Television Critics Association. They just slammed it and nobody liked it. But I think it's done well in the rating wise, and I just like it. The characters, the way that they speak and their speech patterns and kind of the repetition, it's fairly unrealistic, but it's so well acted, and the characters are so intelligent, and the way the storylines are laid out, it actually makes cable news interesting. Which anybody that can write a story to make cable news interesting, all for it, because I can't stand much cable news on a regular basis. It's driving me nuts. But
I think politically it's fairly even toned as well. I mean, Eric Sorkin's a famous liberal.
Yeah.
And Jeff Daniels' character is, I don't want to say he's like a Bill O'Reilly, or maybe he is sort of patterned after a Bill O'Reilly. It's someone who's been sort of a mouthpiece traditionally for the right, but he doesn't necessarily believe everything that he's putting out there.
His character is a registered Republican, but at the same time, he doesn't follow the party line. He actually, if you're a Republican, you say something stupid, he's going to call you out. If you're a Democrat and you say something stupid, he's going to call you out.
You call him a rhino, I guess, which is a Republican in name only.
Right.
But he seems to me to be fiscally conservative and socially doesn't give a fuck.
Right.
Which I think most, I don't want to speak on behalf of all conservatives, but I think most even-minded conservatives would say they're that same way.
Sure.
And maybe it's because I lean more towards libertarian myself. But why I brought this up is that I had as much as I love The West Wing, sometimes they really beat the bat against conservative ideals. Where this, and I talk to my parents, they hate the newsroom. They don't give it a chance. But
I called it network, didn't I? It's newsroom. I'm sorry. It's newsroom. I called it network. I was thinking of
which is sort of like network.
Yeah, I was thinking of the film network. But which the famous line from that film is "I'm mad as hell and
not going
to take any screams at the top of the line." So not network, but newsroom.
Newsroom.
You can see where the confusion is. Sorry.
Where was I going with this? But it's just a more even approach, I think, and it might completely derail at some point, but a more even approach than West Wing was.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that some of the television critics were critiquing, is saying that even though they try and be middle of the road and call stuff out, that they still lean maybe a little too liberal, but then you have somebody else who might say they lean a little too conservative. You're not going to make everybody happy.
No.
And with interviews with Aaron Sorkin, he actually at the TCA meetings or whatever that he was at, he sat down and he answered all the questions from the television critics and kind of fired back and said, I see your points, and we're working on these things. I disagree with you on this, maybe I agree with you on that. Some critics have said that the female characters in the show, kind of worship the male characters a little bit too much, but I don't necessarily agree with that either. I think it's fairly well balanced. I enjoy it. I think it's really, really good. Enjoyable, interesting, well acted, well written.
Just an awesome ensemble cast.
Yeah.
Jeff Daniels is fantastic as sort of the seasoned news reporter. He really feels like he's been doing this for years. He's still very natural in the role. Sam Waterhouse is the standout for me.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Everyone, if you don't know who he is, he was the district attorney on Law and Order for years and years and years.
Well, however long that show was on, 20 years or something.
He just chews up scenery. In fact, this last episode, he gets into an argument with
Olivia Munn's character.
And I was just amazed by the acting, but I was laughing so hard at the same time.
Yeah, it's like it's serious and it's funny and it's really well done. And Olivia Munn, who many people may know from Attack of the Show and kind of like a nerd goddess for a while there, really got some good acting chops. Really, I think is doing a really nice job in this, and easy on the eyes as well. So.
When she started, maybe I don't know what her ethnicity is or where she's from, but when she started speaking in this last episode in Japanese, flawlessly,
spot on.
I was like, holy shit, where did this come from? But she had really surprised. I mean, he's someone who wasn't on a lot of people's radar, but I think will be after this.
Oh yeah, absolutely, definitely I don't know what you want to call a rising star or whatever else, but no, she's done a great job. Really like what she's done.
And the opposite end of the spectrum, True Blood, which newsroom follows.
Yes.
Completely derailed. I just can't imagine it going on another season. In fact, every episode I've watched...
It's already been renewed.
I'm sure it has, but I just keep hoping they kill someone off, and they never kill anyone off.
You know, I used to really like that show. I think the first 3 seasons of that show were all shot on location in Los Angeles. I'm sorry, in Louisiana. This is season 5 now.
I think a lot of it was actually shot in Australia or New Zealand.
Really?
If you watch the credits, it says filmed on location. And I don't know what...
Well, I know a lot of it was done in Louisiana from friends that were in Louisiana that were always trying to get parts on, on the show when they were shooting there. But something about when they moved the show from Louisiana, centered in Louisiana, to Los Angeles, and they, basically just duplicated the sets and then tried to duplicate. Yeah. Well, one, what I've noticed is less exterior shots. So you don't get that same kind of, gritty bayou feel that they had before, which kind of lent it to even realistic as vampires and werewolves and that sort of thing. You're not going to say realistic, but almost a more gritty, realistic sensibility to the whole thing. Sort of how Treme is shot in and around New Orleans and kind of uses the city as a character. And so you've lost Louisiana as a character in True Blood, and now it's I don't know.
It suffers from what a lot of series end up doing, where you have a supernatural element. Cartoons, you can look like stupid like Dragon Ball Z, or even Star Wars in the extended universe, where you have someone as powerful as Luke Skywalker has become. Who could possibly stand up to Luke Skywalker?
Right.
So the enemies and the plot lines just keep getting more and more ridiculous.
Right.
In the first season, you had vampires, which was a cool quirk, but they weren't. They were willing to kill anyone off. I mean, think how many people that we thought were going to be characters in the first season.
Yeah.
Even Gran died, I was surprised.
Yeah.
And then now, there's no consequences to any actions. It just becomes okay.
And you die, they're just going to bring you back. When they killed Tara, that could have been a really great moment in the show to just leave her dead.
Yes. Or Terry. I thought he was going to get shot at the end of the last episode. Yeah. Spoiler, I'm sorry. And he doesn't. I was like, come on. Do something here.
And it's just... I don't know, that just, it's hard to place a finger on, but, I put it as starting when, I think part of it, too, is when you're separated from Los Angeles, you're in Louisiana, and the scripts are coming from LA or wherever they're coming from, and it's the kind of stuff is going back and forth, but you're sort of left on your own there to shoot, create, and, make it the way you want to make it. But then once you're in LA, then, there is, studio and this, and there's just, it feels like LA, it doesn't feel like Louisiana Bayou.
Well, they've got too many plot lines now. They've got too many characters, and worse, they've separated. Like the first 2 seasons, everyone was in Bong Hong.
Yeah.
Now you have people literally everywhere, and they each have to have their own plot line with their own enemy to fight. Whether it's the Brujo guy in Mexico, or now Terry and his war buddy are fighting a genie or something.
Yeah, and they're who knows where they're at, and you see, and it gets to be confusing. You're like, wait, he was just in Louisiana, now he's in Mexico. How long did it take him to get there? But it's like he's instantly there. You're instantly in Mexico. And then, Terry and his war buddy are off somewhere else, and I'm looking, I was like, there's mountains in the background.
But they had been like Arizona or New Mexico or something like that.
Yeah.
It was desert.
And then you start thinking, you're like, wait, are they supposed to be in Louisiana? Oh, but no, they're not in Louisiana. There's obviously, but it's obviously all shot in California, so it just doesn't, whatever they do, it looks like California.
Yeah.
No matter how they try and make it look like LA, you don't have the same foliage, you don't have the same, just the way the humidity hangs in the air in Louisiana. You can't duplicate that by shooting it in LA, and I don't know, it's gotten to basic suckage, essentially.
I used to look forward to True Blood, and now I just can't wait for Game of Thrones to be back.
Right, yes. I know, exactly.
That's how a series should be handled.
Yeah, 2 seasons of Game of Thrones, and I can't wait for more. I started reading the books. I hadn't been reading the books before, now I'm reading the second book. And not to give anything away, if you read the first book is basically spot on for the entire first season.
There's a lot of ancillary characters that they just could not possibly get to, but it's pretty close.
But it's pretty close. But then you start reading the second book, and there's a lot of information and stuff and things that happen in there they just couldn't squeeze into season 2, so you're getting a deeper feel for what that whole world feels like. And it doesn't feel like you're just rereading what you've already watched. And there's new stuff.
Book 3, which we didn't quite get all the way through book 2 in this last season.
Okay.
And book 3 is, I think, the one that people who read the books have the most trouble getting through, because he really gets into the minutia of how the Seven Kingdoms are sort of starting to splinter off and what's going to be the repercussions of this infighting.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a ton of families. So what I was reading is that they're splitting the end of book 2, half of book 3, and then I guess it would be the 4th season will explore the other half of book 3.
Sure. Essentially, what you're looking at is you're going to get 6 or 7 seasons out of Game of Thrones.
Which typically, with the exception of Rome and Deadwood, and fuck HBO for ruining my favorite shows, they usually go 7 seasons.
Yeah, seven's about, and even for a network show, 7's about as far as you could push it. And then
with the exception of like Sopranos, which was just a phenomenon. I don't think it was a cash cow. They had nothing else at the time to really bring money in.
Yeah, and in Rome, I'm still upset about Rome too. 2 seasons of that, and I could take another 10. That was an awesome show.
They did 2.5 for Deadwood, and they just did no justice to those characters. And worse, they didn't let anyone know, especially the writers, that they were going to cancel at the end of the half or the shortened 3rd season.
Right.
There was no closure or anything. It just sort of ended, and it was because Milich jumped over, the creator of it, to make John from Cincinnati, which I think lasted 4 episodes.
Yeah.
And that thing.
Yeah. For any of you who have not seen Rome, get it on Netflix or DVD or whatever, because that show, like I said, one of the cool things about that show is they shot it in Rome. And they built this massive acres and acres.
Well, they were spending close to $10 million an episode, which is totally unfeasible at the time, and they didn't have a lead-in. Like True Blood was a phenomenon, but if you think about it, True Blood brought in so many new subscribers that they were able to go off and do Boardwalk Empire and Game of Thrones, of course, now Newsroom. Whereas back then, and this was only a couple of years ago, though, it wasn't bringing in a lot of new subscribers, so they couldn't really justify a $10 million episode.
Per episode. And then mysteriously, after Rome was canceled, it was a co-production with BBC and HBO, and that's kind of how they split the funds and syndicate it worldwide, make their money back, sort of thing. But after the show was canceled, the studios in Rome, like 6 months later, mysteriously burned to the ground. No one knew how the fire started, but the whole massive set that you can't do anything with except shoot Roman stuff that on the soundstage of Rome burned to the ground. So, not throwing out there any Wesley Snipes type of conspiracy theories, but the conspiracy theory is that somebody burned it to the ground so that they could get the insurance money for it. Not HBO, not the BBC, but the Roman studio that owned where
which
it was
was
all
probably
shot.
built specifically for Rome.
For Rome.
Nothing else.
Then there's nothing else they can do with it, so it burned to the ground, basically. Anyways, maybe that's a good place to end the podcast, as we, I don't know if we burned this thing to the ground or not.
But as a recap, you accused Wesley Snipes of having sex with hookers and evading taxes, and some poor studio in Rome is guilty of burning down.
Our intention is not to slander or insult anyone. The opinions of Tony and Tyler
do not reflect the Sunscreen.
Do not necessarily reflect those opinions of the Sunscreen Film Festival and its non-profit mission of education and promoting film and filmmakers as art and so on and so forth.
Well, I feel educated.
Yes, so good. So, bottom line, sunscreenfilmfestival.com is our website. If you'd like to insult us or ask us questions or something you'd like us to discuss on the show, info at sunscreenfilmfestival.com. Our Twitter is at sunscreenff. You can find us on Facebook, Sunscreen Film Festival, and again, we have the Chris Wyatt workshop coming up September 21st to the 23rd, and if you're watching this podcast, you'll be able to get the discount code SSFF2012, which will discount the workshop from $300 down to $100. So
it's an incredible deal, and submissions are coming up starting September 1st, so remember that. If you want to follow me on Twitter, T. Martinolich. Do you have Twitter?
And I am just Tony Armour, TonyArmer, at, or Twitter, whatever. You know how that works. So, thanks very much. See you next week.